Too close to call, Turkey's presidential election looks set to go to a second-round runoff, with neither candidate netting more than half the votes.
As Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy visits key European allies, France promises Kyiv more light tanks and armoured vehicles.
Thailand's reformist Move Forward party narrowly wins the general election. With more than 14 million votes, it has vowed to form a six-party coalition.
In Bangladesh, hundreds of thousands of people have begun returning to homes they'd evacuated as Cyclone Mocha battered the country's coast. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has ruled his country with an increasingly firm grip for 20 years, is locked in a tight election race. It looks like he's headed for a make-or-break runoff against his chief challenger in 2 weeks, as neither candidate appears to have achieved the 50% threshold.
Milletimize önümüzdeki 5 yıl boyunca hizmet etmeyi sürdüreceğimize yürekten inanıyoruz.
Turkey's Supreme Election Council says Kılıçdaroğlu is on 44.79%, just behind Erdogan on 49.49%. Erdogan's rival has called for an end to the uncertainty and says he's confident he can win the second round.
Milletimiz ikinci tur diyorsa başımızın üstüne. Bu seçimi ikinci turda mutlaka ama mutlaka kazanacağız. Herkes bunu görecek.
The election comes against the background of soaring inflation and in the aftermath of intense criticism of the government's response to Turkey's devastating earthquakes in February. 64 million people were eligible to vote.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arriving in Paris late on Sunday, where he was met by France's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. His visit is part of a whirlwind tour of Europe to shore up support from Kyiv's allies. During some 3 hours of talks with the French President, Emmanuel Macron promised to train and equip several Ukrainian battalions and provide them with dozens of armoured vehicles and light tanks. Earlier, Zelenskyy was in Berlin, where he thanked German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for his government's new military package worth 2.7 billion euros. Ukrainian forces are preparing for a spring counter-offensive to reclaim territory captured by Russia.
In Thailand, reformist opposition leader Pita Lijter-Onra says he is willing to become Prime Minister after a surprise election result gave his progressive Move Forward party a majority in Parliament. The 42-year-old said he will form a six-party coalition.
People of Thailand have already spoken their wish, and I am ready to be the Prime Minister for all, whether you agree with me or you disagree with me. I have congratulated Kun Paetongtarn from Pheu Thai for her hard-fought campaign and have invited her to join the coalition. And that includes 5 more parties in the previous opposition.
Lijter-Onra's victory signals a major swing towards democratic reform and the rejection of military-backed parties. 9 years ago, outgoing Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-ocha led a military coup which ousted the elected government. A fragile ceasefire between Israel and militants in Gaza appears to be holding, but the damage wrought by Israeli air raids on the Palestinian stronghold is extensive. The latest round of Gaza fighting was sparked Tuesday when Israeli jets killed 3 top commanders from the Islamic Jihad militant group in response to earlier rocket launches from Gaza. Locals in the area have been surveying the remains of their homes, sifting through the piles of rubble to collect what is salvageable.
شغل ولا دار ولا سكن ولا حياة مستقرة ولا أمان ولا شيء. إيش عاملين لهم إحنا ولا حاجة. ناس غلابة في حالها. بدهم يستهدفوا بيت يستهدفوا على قد البيت، ليش كل الحي يتدمر ليش؟
Israel has reopened its 2 crossings with Gaza. the closure of which has affected Palestinians with work permits or permission to access essential medical treatment not available in the impoverished territory. The move has also allowed in fuel trucks which now supply Gaza's power station. Meanwhile, in southern Israel, nervous residents in Ashkelon relaxed on the beach. Last week's volley of rockets from Gaza has sent locals diving into shelters. Most of the rockets were intercepted by Israel's defence system. Both sides have committed to the ceasefire, but both have warned they will resume fire if provoked.
In Bangladesh, residents have begun returning to their homes, or what's left of them, after a powerful storm hit the country's coastline. Hundreds of thousands of homes have been evacuated by authorities as Cyclone Mocha made landfall. Mocha began to crash ashore at the Bangladesh-Myanmar border on Sunday, uprooting trees and bringing driving rain to a region home to hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees. At least 5 people are reported dead in Myanmar, which was hit hardest. Bangladeshi meteorologists recorded wind speeds of up to 195 kilometres an hour with gusts and squalls of 215 kilometres an hour. Firefighters and volunteers have now begun trying to clear up, some cutting up tree trunks, blocking roads. Aid workers are distributing food.
আমি একটা এখানে দোকান করি দোকানটা ভেঙে গেছে আমার সুপারি বাগান আছে বাগানটাই সম্পূর্ণ শেষ ঘরের উপর দিয়ে আরো 1991 সালে যেটা হয়েছে এটাই দেখছি 94 দেখছি এর চেয়ে আজকেরটা বাড়ি বেশি দেখাবে ভয়াবহ বেশি দেখাচ্ছে.
But the clear-up operation will take much longer here. Some 300 houses in a Rohingya refugee camp have been destroyed. Bangladesh authorities have banned Rohingya refugees from constructing concrete homes, fearing it may incentivize them to settle permanently rather than return to Myanmar, which they fled 5 years ago following a brutal military crackdown.
North Macedonia's meteorologists are concerned. In April, Lake Prespa, a body of water shared with Greece and Albania, recorded a lower than average amount of rainfall compared to previous years.
Значи како ще иде затоплувањето, глобалното затоплување и врнежите се намалуваат и од снег и од дожд.
And that's put the survival of this million-year-old landscape in question, in particular for the thousands of co-inhabiting species.
Можам да ги ставам во 2 групи на закани, а тие се сериозни закани. Тоа е антропогеното влијание, односно активностите на човекот во рамките на границата на езерото и сливното подрачје, и втората група на закани, тоа е климатските промени.
The dramatic decrease in the water level of the lake has put its rich biodiversity in serious danger, in particular the region's endemic bird species.
The water withdrawal affects, for instance, directly, as I mentioned, the habitats. So, with the influence of the withdrawal, habitats are worsening their quality. They're affecting the existence of the species. So the species are not easily finding food for their existence, for spawning, for breeding. And they are abandoning this region, this place.
Until just a year ago, the waters of the lake was at this line. Now that line is almost 10 meters below. This is an illustration of a dramatic ecological situation, which requires urgent measures to be taken by all 3 countries that share the waters of this beautiful lake. In Prespa region for Euronews, Borian Jovanovski.
In October 2020, the Greek judiciary system dealt the final blow to the most extreme manifestation of the country's far right. Leaders of the Golden Dawn party were sentenced to heavy prison terms. Judges accepted charges that the neo-Nazi group, highly popular for a number of years, was nothing less than a criminal gang operating under the cover of a political party.
Βρισκόμαστε στο σημείο που πριν από σχεδόν 10 χρόνια τα διαβόητα τάγματα εφόδου της Χρυσής Αυγής, που την εποχή εκείνη τρομοκρατούσαν τις λαϊκές συνοικίες του Πειραιά, δολοφονούσαν τον ράπερ και ακτιβιστή Παύλο Φίσα. όπως αποδείχθηκε, ήταν η αρχή του τέλους για το νεοναζιστικό μόρφωμα. Ένα τέλος που επισφραγίστηκε με την εκλογική αποτυχία του 2019, αλλά και την καταδικαστική απόφαση του εφετείου Αθηνών λίγους μήνες αργότερα. Αν και οι εποχές έχουν αλλάξει, τα κηρύγματα μίσους της Χρυσής Αυγής, που διαμορφώθηκαν κυρίως την εποχή των μνημονίων, αλλά και στο απόγειο της μεταναστευτικής κρίσης, βρίσκουν ακόμα εδώ ευήκο αότα.
Today, Golden Dawn no longer exists as a political party. But even though migration flows have dwindled, its extreme ideology still seeks new ways of expression.
Ο πληθωρισμός που μεγάλωσε δυσκολεύοντας την καθημερινότητα του καθενός. Το αντισυστημικό κομμάτι που βγήκε και με την μετατέμπη, το οποίο όμως είναι μια πραγματικότητα διαχρονική, είτε τη διαβάσεις από τα δεξιά, είτε τη διαβάσεις από τα αριστερά, ότι το κράτος δεν λειτουργεί και δεν παίζει το ρόλο του. Ξανασυσπυρώνει αυτό το κομμάτι σε μια προσπάθεια να μπει στο πολιτικό παιχνίδι.
Some members of the Golden Dawn still haven't given up their political ambitions, including Ilias Kassidiaris, who was jailed after being convicted of running a criminal operation.
Έκανε μια μεγάλη προεκλογική εκστρατεία από τη φυλακή και εδώ υπάρχουν πολύ μεγάλες ευθύνες, γιατί του επιτράπηκε να επικοινωνεί, να χρησιμοποιεί λογαριασμούς στα social media, να κάνει ομιλίες μέσα από το κελί του. Θέλει να είναι μια επόμενη μέρα για την ακροδεξιά. Πρέπει να πούμε ότι είναι εξαιρετικά σημαντικό το γεγονός ότι έστω και με παλινοδίες και καθυστερήσεις τελικά βρέθηκε ένας τρόπος θεσμικά λογικός για να μην πάρει μέρος στις εκλογές. Το θέμα είναι ότι το ζήτημα της ακροδεξιάς στην Ελλάδα όχι μόνο δεν έχει κλείσει, τώρα περνάει σε μια άλλη πολύ πιο δύσκολη φάση του.